The vastness of space had always intrigued the aliens, and the records they collected about Earth painted a strange picture. Human history was filled with endless wars, conflicts, and victories. But the aliens thought they understood. After all, they had watched from afar, studied Earth for centuries. They believed they had mapped out humanity's strengths and weaknesses. They were wrong. The first time they made contact with Earth was not through open conflict, but through a quiet mission to gather information. The aliens, known for their advanced technology, had infiltrated Earth's orbit undetected, observing from the shadows. They thought they had everything figured out, prepared for the day they would reveal themselves to the planet's inhabitants. But what they did not know was that humans were unlike anything they had encountered. Earth's people were unpredictable. They had a strength that could not be easily defined or measured, a resilience that defied logic. The aliens' initial encounter with the human ship crew showed them this in a way they were not ready for. As the alien ships descended toward Earth, a small crew of humans aboard a freighter ship detected their presence. The freighter was manned by a simple crew of engineers, traders, and one medic, a man known as Doc. At first, the humans thought it was just another usual cargo run. But when the ships appeared in the sky, the crew's calm demeanor shifted. Doc had always been different from the rest of the crew. Quiet, unassuming, but he had seen more than his fair share of chaos. He had been to war zones. He had treated soldiers in the dead of night after fierce battles. To him, this wasn't the first time an unknown threat had appeared on the horizon. But there was something unsettling about the way the alien ships hovered over the Earth. They didn't come with guns blazing, but with an air of quiet dominance. The aliens believed they could easily intimidate the humans. They had seen the human military forces, and from their research, they knew that Earth's most advanced armies were stretched thin. There would be no organized resistance. They thought that all they had to do was show their strength, and the humans would bow down. But as the alien ships touched down, they quickly realized they had underestimated the humans. The first encounter was not marked by overwhelming fear or panic. Instead, it was marked by curiosity and a strange kind of calm. The humans did not react like the aliens expected. They didn't run, scream, or flee. They observed, and more importantly, Doc observed them closely. As the alien commanders exited their ships, they were ready to display their superiority. Their technology was beyond anything Earth had ever seen. Their weapons were powerful, their ships sleek and advanced. But what the aliens didn't expect was the quiet but steady resistance of humanity. Doc stepped forward from the shadows, calm but resolute. He was just a medic, but the moment the aliens laid eyes on him, they felt something they couldn't understand. There was no weapon in his hand, no armor, no obvious threat, and yet he stood as the most powerful figure in the room. The aliens had expected an army, a general, someone to challenge them. But instead, it was a medic, someone who wasn't supposed to matter in the grand scheme of battle. Doc did not speak much. He didn't need to. The crew members around him looked to him for guidance. He gave them nothing more than a nod. And yet the aliens couldn't shake the feeling that they had just stepped into a territory they had no understanding of. The aliens' leader, a tall and imposing figure, attempted to make his demands. He spoke of peace, of control, of Earth's fate being in their hands. His words were loud, commanding, and powerful, but to Doc, they were nothing more than empty threats. He had seen so many words like this before, from men, from leaders, from generals, words that had no weight. The alien leader turned to Doc, seeing the man's calm face. "You must understand," he said in a voice that echoed through the room. "This is not a negotiation. Earth will comply, or you will fall." Doc did not flinch. His eyes locked with the aliens, and the air seemed to grow still. There was no fear, no sense of panic, only quiet confidence. "Fall," Doc said quietly, his voice calm and steady. "You haven't even seen what it means to fight us yet." The alien leader blinked, puzzled by the words. His mind raced to process the humans' response. It was not the response he had anticipated. The alien soldiers looked at each other in confusion. How could this small group of humans, led by a medic with no weapons, respond in such a way? Doc's crew was ready to fight, but they waited for him. They trusted him. No one else spoke. No one else needed to. The aliens were taken aback. They had expected this moment to be easy. They thought humans would bow to their superior technology and power. But what they did not understand was that the true strength of humanity lay not in weapons or machines. It lay in their spirit. It lay in their ability to adapt, to fight when it mattered most, and to never back down. The aliens began to realize something in that moment, something they had failed to account for. They thought they had calculated everything, but they had overlooked one crucial element: humanity's resilience. And it was Doc, the medic, who embodied that resilience in its purest form. The alien leader, his imposing figure standing tall against the small human crew, couldn't hide his surprise. The humans didn't cower before him. They didn't plead for mercy. In fact, there was an eerie calm about them. They stood in a way that unsettled the alien forces, as though they knew something the invaders didn't. Doc's crew had gathered in the shadows of their ship, observing the alien commanders. They had been trained to face hostile encounters, but they had never imagined an alien force would land directly in front of them. Yet here they were, and they were not afraid. Their trust in Doc was unwavering, and that trust gave them strength. The alien leader, still struggling to understand the human resistance, spoke again. "You cannot win. Earth is weak. You are outmatched." Doc stepped forward, his face still calm but intense. He had seen wars. He had treated soldiers after the worst of battles. He had held the hands of the wounded and died in their place when he needed to. He understood fear and pain better than anyone, but he also understood what it meant to never give up. And right now, the message to the aliens was clear. Humanity was not afraid to fight for survival, and they would never back down. Doc raised his hand slightly, signaling his crew to remain still. His eyes locked with the alien leaders, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. The tension in the air was palpable. The aliens had underestimated the humans in so many ways. The alien leader hesitated for the briefest moment, his confidence starting to waver. "You don't understand," he said, his voice a low growl. "We have seen civilizations fall. You will be no different." Doc, unfazed, responded in a low, steady voice. "We've seen civilizations fall too. But we're not like anyone you've encountered. We don't just fall. We rise." The alien commander scowled, his patience thinning. He turned to his soldiers, signaling them to advance. The alien troops moved in, their advanced weapons glinting in the dim light. It was clear they were prepared for a battle. What they didn't realize was that this wasn't just any battle. It was a fight for Earth's very survival, and the humans had something they couldn't possibly understand. Doc's crew didn't move. They didn't reach for weapons. They stood firm, trusting in their leader. The quiet confidence that Doc carried wasn't just the calm of a man without fear. It was the calm of a man who knew the enemy's every move before they even made it. The alien soldiers advanced, and as they approached, they tried to surround the humans. But then something unexpected happened. The humans, without saying a word, began to spread out, forming a tight circle around the medic. Their formation wasn't tactical, it was instinctual. They knew exactly what they needed to do. One alien soldier, eager to prove their superiority, stepped forward. Without a word, Doc reached out and grabbed the soldier's wrist. The alien's eyes widened in disbelief as Doc twisted the wrist with such precision that the alien fell to the ground, disarmed. The rest of the aliens froze in shock. They had expected the humans to panic, to scatter. They had expected them to be overwhelmed by their superior strength and technology. But instead, Doc and his crew fought with an efficiency and precision that was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Doc didn't speak. He didn't need to. His crew knew exactly what to do. In the chaos of the standoff, the human soldiers moved with purpose, using the alien soldiers' own confusion against them. The battle wasn't a contest of strength, but of intelligence and unity. The humans knew how to use their surroundings to their advantage, and most importantly, they knew how to adapt. The alien leader was furious. He had never seen anything like this before. Their technology, which had once seemed so superior, now seemed insignificant. The humans were fighting with a tenacity that couldn't be predicted. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for something much deeper, something that the aliens couldn't fathom. Enough. The alien leader bellowed, signaling for his soldiers to retreat. But it was too late. The humans had already shown them that they would not yield, that they could never be broken. The aliens may have been technologically advanced, but they had failed to understand one crucial element about humanity: the human spirit. They had assumed that humans were just another race to conquer, another species to dominate. But they had learned the hard way that Earth was different. Doc stood tall, his eyes never leaving the alien leaders. The battle was far from over, but the aliens now understood the most important lesson of all. Earth would not go down without a fight. And no matter how powerful they were, the aliens had just learned that humanity's will to survive was stronger than any technology they could wield. The first encounter had ended, but it was only the beginning of something much larger, and the aliens now knew. This was not a war they could easily win. The alien fleet had retreated, but the damage was done. The first encounter had left humanity with more questions than answers. Why had the aliens underestimated them? How had they misread Earth's resilience and power? The questions loomed large, but the humans knew one thing for sure. They had only just begun to understand the scale of the war they were now part of. Doc stood among his crew, his gaze unwavering, as he reviewed the aftermath of the battle. His hands were steady, but his mind raced. He had fought countless battles in his career, but this was different. The stakes were higher. Earth wasn't just facing an invasion. It was facing an intergalactic conflict that would shape the future of the entire species, and humanity's role in it was still unfolding. The crew, once disoriented by the sheer scale of the encounter, was now coming to terms with the fact that they had won, against all odds. But Doc knew better than anyone that a single victory, no matter how significant, didn't win the war. This was just one small chapter in a story that had only just begun. "We're not finished," Doc said to his crew, his voice firm but calm. "The aliens will return, and when they do, we'll be ready." A hushed silence fell over the group. It wasn't fear that gripped them, but something far deeper: anticipation. The crew members exchanged looks of understanding. They knew that the aliens would not back down so easily. They were not dealing with enemies who would simply turn tail and flee. They were up against an advanced species, one with technologies far beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. Yet there was something in the way Doc spoke that gave them confidence. It wasn't just his knowledge or his expertise in battle. It was the quiet certainty that their survival was inevitable, no matter what came next. "We're going to need more than just weapons to win this," Doc continued, his eyes sweeping over the faces of his crew. "We need to understand our enemy. We need to understand how they think, how they move, and most importantly, how they underestimate us." One of the crew members, a young technician named Zane, stepped forward. "We've already learned so much from their tactics, Doc. We've seen how they expect us to behave. They think we're primitive. They think we're weak." He paused, his voice tinged with anger. "But what if we use that to our advantage? What if we use their misconceptions against them?" Doc looked at Zane with a nod of approval. "Exactly. Their arrogance is their greatest weakness. They've seen us fight with strength and strategy, but they haven't yet grasped our resilience. They still don't understand why we fight, why we'll never give up." The crew murmured in agreement, their determination rising with each passing second. Doc's words had sparked something in them, a new sense of purpose. They weren't just soldiers. They were humanity's last line of defense against an invincible enemy. They were the ones who would prove that the human spirit could never be crushed. Over the next few days, Doc and his team worked tirelessly. They gathered data from the battlefield, analyzing every movement the aliens had made, every weapon they used. They scored every piece of technology they had retrieved, trying to unlock the secrets behind the alien strengths and weaknesses. Doc knew that the more they understood, the better they would be able to counter the alien forces. But there was one thing Doc had learned that worried him deeply. The aliens weren't alone. This invasion was only the tip of the iceberg. The fleet they had faced was only a small part of a much larger, far-reaching alliance. Earth wasn't just fighting one alien race. It was fighting an entire coalition of intergalactic forces, each with their own agendas and technology. In the quiet of the lab, Doc began to make a troubling realization. If Earth was going to survive this war, they would need more than just tactics and weapons. They would need to find a way to unite humanity as never before. They would need to form alliances with other species, even if it meant striking deals with those who had once been considered enemies. The war for Earth was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future of the galaxy. Doc's thoughts were interrupted by a sharp beeping sound. He turned to see one of the communications officers, Sarah, signaling him urgently. "Doc, you need to see this," Sarah said, her voice filled with urgency. Doc crossed the room, his heart pounding in his chest. Sarah had pulled up a transmission, a live feed from a ship that had been scanning the edge of Earth's orbit. The signal was encrypted, but Sarah had managed to crack the code. The screen flickered to life, revealing a message from a familiar face, a face Doc had never expected to see again. "Doc," the figure on the screen said, his voice cold and distant. "You've made your mark, but this is just the beginning. Earth's war has only just begun, and we are watching. We are waiting." The transmission cut off as quickly as it had started. The message was clear, and the implications were terrifying. Earth was not only at war with the aliens they had just faced, but with an entire galactic network that had been watching humanity for far longer than anyone realized. Doc turned to his crew, his face hardening with resolve. "We've only scratched the surface. The war is far from over, and we'll fight, not just for Earth, but for everything we stand for." The unseen strength of humanity had just been revealed. And now, the true test was beginning. The transmission had left Doc rattled, but he wasn't about to show weakness in front of his crew. The message was brief, but the words were clear. Humanity was in far deeper than they had imagined. Whoever was behind this invasion wasn't just interested in Earth. They were watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Doc sat in his command chair, his mind racing. The message on the screen had unsettled him, but it also ignited a fire within him. Earth's enemies had underestimated them once. Now it was time for humanity to show the universe just how much they had underestimated them. But the enemy they were facing was far more insidious than anything they had imagined. "Everyone needs to get ready," Doc said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We're not dealing with just one enemy. This war is much larger than we thought. Whoever is behind that transmission, they have allies. And if they've been watching us for this long, it's only a matter of time before they strike again." The crew responded instantly, springing into action. Orders were given, and stations were manned. There was no time to waste. They had to prepare for an enemy that was both ruthless and cunning, one that had been observing humanity long before they had ever thought to take a stand. "We need to strengthen our defenses," said Sarah, the communications officer. That transmission wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. Whoever they are, they'd been watching our every move. Doc nodded grimly. "I agree. But we also need to find out more." That transmission didn't just come from one ship. It came from somewhere else. We need to track it back to its source. The team worked tirelessly over the next few hours, gathering data from every corner of their ship and from every satellite that could still communicate with Earth. The enemy's tactics were advanced, and their technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. But there was one thing the aliens still didn't understand: humanity's determination. "Doc," called out a voice from the back of the room. It was Zane, the young technician who had been one of the first to spot the alien underestimation. "I've tracked the signal back. It's coming from beyond our known borders, and I think I know where it's headed." Doc's heart skipped a beat. "Where?" "To the outer colonies," Zane said. "There's a cluster of human colonies out near the edge of the solar system, colonies we've had little contact with for years. They're isolated, vulnerable, and it looks like the enemy is targeting them first." Doc stood up, pacing back and forth. The implications were staggering. Earth's outer colonies, vulnerable and poorly defended, were being used as a distraction. The aliens, or whatever force was behind this, knew that Earth's defenses were strongest in the heart of the planet, but the colonies were an entirely different story. They were exposed, and now those colonies were about to become the front line of a war humanity wasn't prepared for. "We need to move fast," Doc said. "Prepare the fleet. Get us ready to jump to the outer colonies. We can't afford to wait. If we don't stop them now, we risk losing everything." The crew scrambled into action, gathering every available resource. Earth's fleet wasn't as vast as the enemy's, but it was scrappy and resourceful. The humans had one thing the aliens did not. They had a deep well of desperation and determination. Earth had been pushed to the brink, and humanity had fought to survive every time. This would be no different. Doc's thoughts turned to the colonies. His mind raced with the possibilities of what could happen if they didn't act quickly enough. But he couldn't afford to let fear take over. He had to stay focused. Earth's survival depended on him, and on every single person who was willing to fight for their future. "Sarah," Doc said, his voice sharp with authority, "I need you to send a message to every colony. Let them know what's coming. Prepare them for the worst, and tell them we'll be there as soon as possible." As Sarah began transmitting the warning, Doc turned to Zane. "What do we know about the enemy's fleet? How long do we have?" Zane's fingers flew over his console, pulling up the latest data. The alien fleet is still positioned just outside the orbit of Jupiter. It's a large force, but they've been moving slowly. They're trying to remain undetected, but they won't stay hidden for long. Doc's mind raced. The outer colonies were too far for Earth's fleet to reach in time. But if they couldn't stop the aliens of the colonies, they would be directly in the path of Earth's core cities. It was a race against time, and the clock was ticking down. He turned to his crew. "We'll make a jump to the outer colonies. We're going to need every ship, every resource. It's not just about fighting them. It's about protecting our future. If we can stop them at the colonies, we'll have a chance to push them back and reclaim our position." The crew was silent for a moment, but then one by one, they nodded. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about sending a message to the galaxy. Earth wasn't weak. Earth wasn't a target to be conquered. It was a force to be reckoned with. With the plan set, they moved quickly, preparing for their jump. Doc knew that this mission would not be easy, and many lives might be lost. But Earth was no longer the underdog. They had learned their enemy's weaknesses, and now they would use that knowledge to fight back. Humanity's war had only just begun, and the galaxy was about to learn the true power of Earth's resolve. The tension in the control room was palpable as Doc and his crew prepared for the battle ahead. The ships were ready, weapons primed, and the course was set. Humanity had never faced an enemy like this before, but they were determined not to back down. "We're on the clock," Doc said, his voice sharp and commanding. "We need to hit the colonies before they can deploy their full force. If we let them regroup, it'll be a massacre." His team was already in motion, the crew working like a well-oiled machine. Every person knew their role. Every person had a purpose. The future of Earth depended on them. Zane, the young technician, was monitoring the fleet's movements. "The alien ships are still in their position, but they're getting ready to move," he reported. "They're starting to send out smaller scout ships to test our defenses. We have to move now." Doc nodded. Set a course for the outer colonies. We're going to strike first. No mercy. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, the stars blurring as the engines roared to life. As they emerged from the jump, the dark expanse of space stretched before them, filled with the endless black void. And somewhere within that void, the enemy waited. The outer colonies were spread out across vast stretches of space, isolated from Earth's central hubs. But in this moment, they were far from alone. The enemy had already arrived. "Enemy ships detected," Sarah said, her voice tight with concentration. "They're moving toward the colonies. We don't have much time." Doc's heart pounded. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it. They had to stop the alien advance or risk losing everything. "All ships, form up," Doc ordered. "We're going in hot. No hesitation. Fight for the colonies. Fight for Earth." The battle began as the Earth fleet surged forward, weapons firing. Bright flashes filled the darkness of space as the two forces collided in a storm of energy and metal. Explosions rippled through the enemy ranks, but they didn't stop. The alien ships were relentless, powerful, and unnervingly precise in their attacks. Doc watched the battle unfold before him, his hands gripping the armrests of his command chair. The enemy ships were unlike anything humanity had faced before. Sleek, fast, and highly maneuverable, they tore through the ranks of Earth's fleet with ease. But the humans were not backing down. They fought back with everything they had. "Keep the pressure on them," Doc shouted. "Don't give them an inch. They think they can push us around, but they're about to learn what happens when you mess with Earth." The battle raged on. For every alien ship destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. It was clear this was only the beginning. But Earth's fleet was holding its ground. The crew had trained for moments like this. They were ready, and they would not let their colonies fall. "We're taking damage," shouted Zane from the back of the room. "Shields are holding, but not for long. If we don't take out their flagship, we're going to lose this fight." Doc's mind raced. The flagship, the enemy's command ship. If they didn't take it down, the rest of the fleet would remain coordinated and relentless. Without it, the enemy would be like a headless serpent, disorganized and weak. "All ships, focus fire on their flagship," Doc commanded. "Target the core. We need to end this now." As if on cue, every ship in the fleet turned its focus toward the massive enemy vessel. Laser fire, missiles, and plasma blasts rained down on the flagship. It was a massive target, but its armor was unlike anything they had ever encountered. For a moment, it seemed as though their attacks weren't doing anything. But Doc wasn't about to give up. "Get in closer," he barked. "We need to disable their shields. Zane, give me everything you've got. We can't afford to wait." Zane's fingers danced across his console, working feverishly to hack into the alien systems. The seconds felt like hours, and the battle around them seemed to stretch on endlessly. The flagship continued to launch attacks, but now it was vulnerable. The Earth fleet had found its opening. "Shields are down," Zane yelled. "We've breached their defenses. Now," Doc shouted, pointing toward the enemy ship. Every weapon on every ship fired in unison, hitting the flagship with a massive surge of energy. The alien vessel shuddered violently as explosions rippled across its surface. For a moment, it seemed as though it would hold together, but then the core of the ship detonated in a blinding flash. The enemy flagship was no more. For a moment, there was silence. The entire battlefield seemed to freeze, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, the reality of the victory set in. The rest of the alien fleet began to falter, its ships breaking apart and retreating into the darkness of space. Doc let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The battle wasn't over, but this was a decisive blow. The tide had turned in humanity's favor. "We did it," Sarah said, her voice soft with disbelief. "We actually did it." But Doc didn't let himself relax just yet. The victory had come at a heavy cost. Many ships were damaged, and they had lost crew members. But this was only the beginning. The message had been sent. Earth was no longer a target. Earth was a force to be reckoned with. "Prepare for the next wave," Doc said, his voice steady and resolute. "This war is far from over." The crew nodded. The fight for Earth was just beginning, and humanity was ready to face whatever came next. The victory over the alien flagship was only the beginning, and Doc knew it. The entire fleet was still on high alert, every crew member exhausted but determined. They had sent a message, yes, but now the galaxy would know Earth was not just a target. They had made a statement that would echo across the stars. The atmosphere in the command room was heavy with tension. The crew was still processing the magnitude of their recent success, but they also knew the war had only just begun. The aliens would regroup. They would come for Earth again, stronger, more prepared. Doc needed to ensure they were ready. "Status report," Doc ordered, his voice firm as he looked around at his team. Zane, Sarah, and the rest of the crew were at their stations, fingers flying across the control panels, working tirelessly to keep the fleet moving and the systems operational. "Fleet is intact, sir," Zane reported, eyes flicking between the flashing screens in front of him. "We took a hit, but nothing critical. We've got plenty of fuel and ammo." "But," Doc's brow furrowed. "What is it, Zane?" Zane hesitated for a moment. "We've detected something on the edge of our radar. It's big. Very big. Too big to be one of their scout ships. It looks like reinforcements." Doc's mind raced. He had expected a counterattack, but not this soon. Not this overwhelming. "How long do we have?" Doc asked, his voice barely above a whisper. 10 minutes, Zane replied. "Maybe less. We're still calculating, but it's coming straight at us." "Prepare for battle," Doc said without hesitation. "All ships, combat positions, lock weapons on target. No one gets left behind. We end this now." The crew moved quickly, shifting into battle mode, the controlled chaos of military preparation taking over. The tension was palpable as they braced for the unknown. The sound of weapons charging, shields powering up, and engines humming with readiness filled the command room. Doc's fingers gripped the armrest of his chair tightly, his gaze focused on the view screen ahead. The stars were dark, silent, until they weren't. From the void, a massive ship emerged. It dwarfed any Earth vessel by a factor of 10. A colossal battle cruiser, the likes of which humanity had never seen. It was the vanguard of the alien fleet, the one they had been waiting for. "It's here," Sarah said, her voice steady but laced with fear. "The real fight begins now." The ship was close, too close. Doc knew the fleet had little chance of surviving the head-on assault against something that large. But there was no turning back now. "We'll need to get creative," Doc muttered under his breath. "We've got a shot," Zane said, his fingers flying across the console. "I can hack their navigation system, disrupt their firing patterns, but it'll be a one-time deal. They'll catch on fast." Doc nodded. "Do it. We don't have time to waste." Zane's eyes narrowed with concentration as he typed rapidly, accessing the enemy's comms. The tension in the room grew, and the weight of the coming battle pressed down on everyone's shoulders. "Just a few more seconds," Zane said, his voice tight. "Everyone, brace yourselves," Doc warned. "We're about to take this ship down." The seconds stretched like hours as the alien ship moved closer, its dark silhouette growing larger on the view screen. In those moments, every heartbeat felt amplified. Doc's mind raced through the possibilities, knowing that if this didn't work, humanity was facing its biggest challenge yet. "Now," Zane shouted. There was a sudden, sharp sound as Zane's hack hit the enemy systems. The massive alien ship shuddered, its weapons temporarily offline, shields flickering weakly as their systems struggled to realign. Humanity's fleet immediately took advantage of the opening. "Full barrage. Fire now," Doc barked. The Earth ships launched everything they had in rapid succession. Missiles, laser cannons, and explosive charges. The massive ship roared in pain as explosions lit up its surface. The alien vessel retaliated, its weapons firing wildly but erratically, as if the crew was struggling to regain control. "It's working," Zane said, eyes wide with disbelief. "We've got them on the ropes." Doc didn't let up. "Keep the pressure on. They won't go down without a fight, but neither will we." For every strike, the alien ship took massive damage, its structure cracking under the force of the Earth fleet's relentless assault. The massive cruiser was powerful, but it was no match for the combined might and creativity of Earth's finest. With each barrage, more of the alien ship disintegrated, and the battle slowly shifted in humanity's favor. The alien ship's movements became sluggish, its defensive systems failing. It was clear that their advantage was slipping away. Earth's forces had found their stride. The final blow came when the heart of the alien ship, the engine room, was struck. A massive explosion erupted as the core exploded in a violent blaze, sending shockwaves throughout space. The flagship was gone. Silence followed. The enemy's reinforcements, already on their way, hesitated. Without their leader, the remaining alien forces wavered. The victory wasn't just a tactical win, it was a message. The battle was over. Humanity had struck back with everything they had, and the galaxy would never forget it. "That's how we fight," Doc said, his voice calm but filled with determination. "We're not done yet," Sarah added. "This is just the beginning." Doc nodded, knowing she was right. Earth had proven it could defend itself. But as the stars flickered quietly in the distance, one thing was certain. Humanity was now a force the universe would have to reckon with. And it was only just getting started. The calm after the battle was strange. The victorious fleet, with its surviving ships still floating in the void, seemed almost unreal. There was no sound in space, no cheering, no celebration. Only the quiet hum of the engines, the steady pulse of the ship's systems, and the far-off stars watching over them like silent sentinels. Doc stood in the command center, staring out at the now empty battlefield. It had been a brutal fight, but Earth had won. Against all odds, they had struck a decisive blow, proving that humanity would not go down without a fight. But victory, Doc knew, wasn't a guarantee. The aliens were not defeated. They were merely wounded. "Doc," Sarah said, her voice breaking the silence. "We did it. We actually did it. They're retreating." Doc didn't respond right away. He was still thinking about the cost of the battle, the lives lost, and the sacrifices made. They had won this round, but he understood what the universe didn't yet grasp about humanity. Earth fought for survival, not just for victory. And survival wasn't something to take lightly. "I'm aware," he said quietly, turning back to Sarah. "But it's not over. They'll come back. They always come back." Zane, his hand still hovering over the consoles, nodded in agreement. "He's right. We've sent them a message, but the war isn't won with just one battle. We need to prepare for the next wave." Doc took a deep breath and walked over to the main screen. The fleet's damage had been minimal, all things considered, but the alien forces had lost their flagship. That was a huge advantage, but it wouldn't guarantee anything long-term. The aliens would regroup. They always did. "We won't just sit back and wait," Doc said, his tone hardening with determination. "This is the beginning of something bigger. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." As the crew worked to assess the damage and restore the fleet's systems, Doc's mind wandered back to the battle's pivotal moment, the hack that had thrown the enemy's systems into chaos. Zane had done a masterful job, but Doc knew that this trick wouldn't work forever. The aliens would adapt. They always adapted. "We need more than just technology," Doc muttered to himself. Sarah, overhearing him, raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "We need to understand the aliens better. We need to know what drives them, what their weaknesses are. We can't rely on tricks and tactics alone. We need to outthink them." Zane shot a quick glance at Doc. "You think we can do that?" Doc looked up at him, his expression determined. We've got something they'll never have. We fight for more than just survival. We fight for each other, and that's something they won't understand until it's too late. Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of awe and uncertainty. So what's next? Do we hunt them down? Doc took a step back, his mind already shifting to the next phase of the plan. We wait. We let them think they've won for now. But we'll be watching. And when the time comes, we'll strike again. Harder, smarter, and we'll make sure they know that Earth is not a place they can threaten without consequences. Zane looked over at Doc, a smile slowly forming on his face. Sounds like you've got a plan. I always have a plan, Doc replied, his voice steady and calm. The team continued their work, repairing the ships and securing their position in space. The universe had just witnessed the first battle in a war unlike any other, and it would soon come to realize the true nature of humanity. Earth wasn't just a planet. It wasn't just a colony to be destroyed or a species to be wiped out. Humanity had shown that they could fight, survive, and win. As the fleet prepared to move again, the stars around them remained silent. The galaxy was still. But the silence held a promise that no one could ignore. Earth had awoken, and it would never again be underestimated. The war was far from over, but humanity had made it clear. They were here to stay, and they were ready for whatever came next. And the universe would tremble at the thought of facing them again.